Okay. Hmm. All right, 1 second. Let me get my Instagram going again. Okay, now, there we go. Now we're back up and it looks like Facebook is working. So thank you all for letting me know that. Yep, lots more folks are coming on. So my apologies if you're on Facebook. Apparently, yeah, Kathy, thank you for that. Someone told me who was on YouTube as well that the Facebook wasn't streaming for some reason. So I just changed some settings and now we're back up. Okay, so welcome. I was rambling away for the last 10 minutes. If you're on Facebook, you missed that part of it, but I'll do a quick recap and we'll get going again. Yeah, welcome to Office Hours Live. My apologies for that little delay on the Facebook group, but we'll keep rolling along. I had a couple questions sent in advance, and I went through one of those briefly, and I'll go through a couple more. But I also love to see your questions, and we'll talk about more of those live. So, best topics: hormones, diet, health, weight loss, thyroid function, and we'll make sense out of these things for you all. Joanne, Margaret, Kathy, yeah, welcome you guys. Yeah, honestly, the number of people on was smaller than typical too. I was also wondering what happened. I was wondering where you guys all were. So good to see everyone back. A couple of questions were sent in before. Hey, Laura. Yeah, welcome. A couple were sent in before, and I'll do those, but we'll get more live ones too. I'm going to get my Instagram feed up and running too, so I can watch that one also. Okay, here we go. Now it's all working. Okay. Welcome. Hey, Kelly. Yep, my apologies. It was looking like it was working, but it wasn't working on one channel. So I'm with you guys on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube Live. And for whatever reason, Facebook was being weird. I just returned it back on and did a reset, and all was good. But here we go. So yeah, so Karen, I was talking about Karen's question, and she sent this one on Facebook too. So I'm glad that I can mention this. She was asking about if there's a higher risk of cancer for those on levothyroxine. Now, there may be a higher risk of mortality for those being treated versus those that are not. And it seems to be less of a side effect of levothyroxine and more so a benefit of someone having their own thyroid output. This came from a big study in Korea, and it was done not that long ago. They tracked about 1 million people, and they looked at a group on thyroid medication and a very similar group not on thyroid medication. And they lined these groups up in terms of rates of high blood pressure, rates of diabetes, you name it. It was like very identical. And they saw almost twice the mortality risk for those needing treatment. I'm going to share an image that shows that one. So this is from that study. And it was different per the overall duration of treatment, but in some cases, the risks were just about doubled. So, Margaret, did the study include the brand Synthroid? So no, it didn't. It was really on thyroid medication across the board. And it'd be hard to make a strong argument about one brand being radically different from another. And a valid question too is how much this would apply to other kinds of thyroid medication, like natural thyroid or compounded thyroid. It was such a big study of so many people, and the differences were so dramatic that I think it's a fair takeaway that the implications could apply to other forms. So what do you do about this? Well, I think the main takeaway message is to try to optimize one's own thyroid function. I'm sorry, I should back up. So Karen's question was specifically about cancer risk. Now, the study didn't break down per type of mortality, but they did argue that the most common cause of mortality in the population was cancer. So given that there was more total mortality and the most common cause of mortality was cancer, there would have been more of that. That would have been a fair conclusion to draw. So I think of this not so much saying that the medications are bad, more so that one's own output is good. And I would tie that along with the question we had earlier that Bubba was asking about having a high TSH and needing to be on medication. There's a big benefit to your own thyroid working. And so I'm excited to talk a lot about the way in which diet and natural treatments like supplements and lifestyle, how those things can help. Those things are powerful. Those make a really big difference. And even if your output goes up even partially, that's still useful. That's still a big win. So yeah, the more your body can make, the better. The biggest difference that makes. And I'm going to share an article that I wrote about deprescribing. Many who are on thyroid medication were in the categories to where the medications might not be expected to help. And that's a big part of why they have these greater health issues, because they were put on them unnecessarily. Okay, so Bub is here now. Bubba, I'm so sorry. You're on YouTube. I was talking on YouTube before, or talking before you're on Facebook. I was talking before, but the Facebook hadn't gone through. Bubba, let me quickly go back and cover your question because it was a really good one. I'll do this briefly, and if there's more details you have, you're welcome to put them in. So here was yours about, can the TSH rise in the 6 to 8 range but not be truly hypothyroid and require medication? The short answer is, it's true. It's a real thing, and it does point toward hypothyroidism. But the follow-up question, do you need medication? Not necessarily. And this is what we're seeing now, is that there's a difference between having low thyroid function and being in a situation where medication can be helpful. It's quite surprising, but there's many circumstances in which people have an underactive thyroid, and it can cause symptoms, it can cause risks, but the medications don't improve upon those risks. And I'm sharing a link that I wrote on explaining that a bit more and making that distinction. And that's right there, about the idea of when can someone come off of medication if it wasn't needed for them. Hey, Matcha Lava, good to see you as well. Good to have more folks here with me today. So yeah, Bubba, here's an image that talks about that. People in a situation like you described, with the TSH being high, below 20, but as high as 6 to 8 or even higher than that. So that can cause a lot of problems, including poor quality of life, symptoms, many thyroid symptoms, depression, fatigue, poor mental function. It can raise the risk for mortality and heart disease. But, here's the big but, medications didn't help any of those outcomes. So someone like you, Bubba, if you were put on medication, it wouldn't have changed those particular outcomes. So that's the big message, is that this is a real thing that is a problem with the thyroid, but it doesn't mean that medications are the best solution for that. So what does help? The easiest first thing to think about is really just helping your thyroid work better again. And that was the core message behind the thyroid reset diet. And yeah, take a look at that. I'm going to share something here for you guys. The book itself is, of course, wherever you get books, but I've got a lot of free resources as well. So thyroidresetdiet.com/resources. And that's a site that has some of the food lists from the book and some general ideas to get someone started. But yeah, Bubba, take a look at that. And there's a lot of ways in which the thyroid can heal naturally, and quite dramatically so. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to grab one or two live questions here and then go back to some of these that were sent in before. There's a lot of folks here that are asking good ones that I'm seeing pop up, and it's tricky. I try to figure out which ones to. There's good ones that were sent in and good ones that are coming up live, and I want to do some of each. So Nora has a great question. Have your book. I have high TPO antibodies, but optimal TSH, T3, T4, and suffer from constipation and thin hair. What can I do since I truly feel constipation is root cause? So Nora, so root cause, so that could be a very important symptom for you. But as far as being a cause of thyroid disease or a consequence of thyroid disease, there's more data arguing it's an effect. It's a cause. The antibodies cause constipation more so than constipation causing the antibodies. But the antibodies can be a factor for thinning hair, and it can be a factor for digestive problems as well. I'm going to get a link up for you. In terms of what to do about them, Very easy thing. So regulating iodine, like in the thyroid reset diet, is one big step. And then antibody support. I'm sharing a link to this here. This is a blend of nutrients, each of which has been showed in good quality human studies to reverse thyroid antibodies safely. But yeah, that can be a big factor for constipation and thinning hair. So good things to consider. Um, yeah, Bubba, you're welcome. Yeah, check those out. And Bubba, if there's more details about, yeah, yes, then what does help? Medication is not helping much, only causing side effects. Yeah, Bubba, this is the thing. There's been so much study on this that in situations like yours, and this is why 85% or more people are put on thyroid medication because they have a high TSH or even or high normal TSH, but they're not overtly hypothyroid. They've not had their T4 flatline just yet. So what's going on is that your brain is telling your thyroid to work and it's working harder. Now it's getting yelled at, and there's something wrong because of that. It shouldn't have to get yelled at that much, but it's still working. It's still making hormone. So the problem at that point, the cause of symptoms is not the lack of hormone. The problem is the whole autoimmune response giving rise to that. And that's why medications don't really help because they don't help the autoimmune side of it. Now, there are those that have an actual lack of hormone. And in those cases, the medications can be life-saving, but not when when the hormone's not lacking, giving more hormone doesn't really help. I'm looking at more questions here. So Aisha's back here. Welcome back. Regarding the Graves bundle, is there a time frame to retest your labs after taking the bundle, or do we need to retest? Yeah, great question. So, and if you want to put more detail, please do. I'm assuming that with Graves' disease, that someone is on treatment for that as well, and some treatment to slow the thyroid, most commonly medications. But with that, the time frame for change with Graves' disease is anywhere from about 2 to 3 weeks to see changes in lowering a high T3 and T4, or about a month to see the TSH come back up again. So it depends what stage someone is in, but definitely want to retest. The levels of hyperthyroidism, they're dangerous. They do hurt the heart and the bones and the brain, and you want to make sure it's getting better. So the Graves bundle is really to help protect against those complications and help other treatments work better. But it does take something to slow the thyroid down, and you want to make sure it's all working properly too. So yeah, very good question. And timing shouldn't go more than a month without checking, because yeah. So what happens there is that if someone is on treatment to slow their thyroid because it's overactive, and then their treatment works better, it may slow it too much, and it may push them into hypothyroidism. That's why it's important to monitor and make sure that they're getting the right amount of treatment and they're not now getting too much treatment. Oh, here's an easy one I can address. Well, I'll come back to that one. So one that was sent in before. Hey, Laura, I just saw you here. That's one of the ones that I was going to address. And I'll go out of order, Laura, and we'll get yours right now. So Laura sent in a question about outer thirds of eyebrows thinning and missing. Whole life had been normal before, but came on with a diagnosis of hypothyroidism. Is this related? And now she's on thyroid medication, but they persist. They still thin. So Laura, this has been called the sign of Hertog. Slide her over here a little bit more. Also called Queen Anne's sign. So this was some painting of Queen Anne. And if you look really close, you can see that her outer eyebrows were missing. They had thinned. And a Dr. Hertog, who's one of the earliest thyroidologists, this was in Belgium, and this was in the 1800s, late 1800s. He identified this sign as being one that correlated with a severe loss of thyroid function. Back then, it was called myxedema. So yeah, it's been known to be related for a long time, a sign of Hertog. Now, what else causes that? There's not a lot of other things that can cause that. There are some rare diseases, some rare vascular diseases that may be related. And subjectively, there are times to where high amounts of androgen can cause that. If If it came on with a diagnosis of hypothyroidism, though, that would totally do it. I'm seeing your note, just like my eyebrows. Okay, just like in the picture. So the question is, does that go away when the thyroid levels change? The answer is not always. So what happens there is that with hypothyroidism, generally the autoimmune side of it, that's what can cause the damage to the follicles. So sometimes persistent autoimmunity can cause that to keep on going. Laura, I don't know if you've had your thyroid antibodies measured or tracked, but they can be factors of that. Now, here's a really weird thing. Thyroid autoimmunity can cause problems even for people that have normal thyroid antibodies. You heard that right. So, thyroid antibodies aren't perfect measurements of thyroid autoimmunity. A lot of thyroid autoimmunity takes place in things that are not measurable by the thyroid antibodies. So, yeah, if someone has thyroid disease and issues come on afterward, it can be worth taking steps to help autoimmunity, even if they don't have high thyroid antibodies. But Laura, if you're on and you want to mention, I'd be curious to know if your antibodies have been known to be elevated, or maybe they've not been checked just yet. So another theme about office hours is I love to get follow-up questions and questions that go deeper in certain topics. So I always look for those. So looking back at Aisha and about talking about Graves, I'm in remission, but feeling a few symptoms coming up, but nothing like when I was diagnosed. So decided to get the bundle with some adrenal support. It makes perfect sense, Aisha. And if you're tracking your thyroid levels regularly enough and they're stable, that's fine. You could stay on schedule for tracking that. By adding in the hyperthyroid support, that wouldn't make you need to do your test sooner than you would otherwise. Yeah, if you were on treatment, though, the going on the hyperthyroid support could make your treatment work better and might require an adjustment. But not being on meds, no, you could stay on your set schedule for when you were due to screen anyway. Okay. So here's one that I'd love to address. Kelly, struggling with weight despite diligent efforts, multiple MRD, notice my leptin is really high, used to be 5 to 10, now up. I don't suffer from hunger cravings. It doesn't work. All your ideas could be holding me back. Going through menopause now, always on ways, very frustrating, must be menopausal. Kelly, yeah. If you haven't already been active in the Facebook group, please do. There's almost always something that can be found through troubleshooting. So far, we've had 30 some odd thousand people do the MRD. And I've had a lot of folks say that they did it and it didn't work. But whenever we've been able to troubleshoot with them and just talk it through, so far there's always been a reason. So there never hasn't been a time in which we found some reason why it didn't work. So yeah, on the group, please go through that, or people can consult with me directly as well. I'll put the link up for that. But I'd love to troubleshoot that with you. There's something that didn't connect right. There's some reason for that. And having leptin high is totally normal with that's not unusual. It doesn't mean there's something broken or different about you, but there's common things that show up through troubleshooting with how the MRD goes for people. So yeah. Very active in the group. I think I'll set up time with you. Yeah, take a peek at that, Kelly. I'll put this link up. I'm not sure if it posted right or not. I meant to post it. Maybe you're already aware of that. But yeah, let's troubleshoot that. There's something not right. I just had an interview with someone who's now down, I think it was 65 pounds, and her first couple didn't work for her, but it was then a matter of troubleshooting, and she went on to become very successful with it. I had a great question about Epstein-Barr. I want to put that one up too. I'm just seeing some talks within the group. That's really good. Jody, here's a quick one. How long can I safely take the thyroid antibody support? Totally safe. Yeah, so Jody, the antibody support, all those ingredients are ones that are food-like, and they come under the category called GRAS, or generally recognized as safe. So no harm to those for as long-term as helpful. So here's a related question. This is with us, one of our friends on Instagram, and she's asking, suboptimal TSH, T3 and T4, no Hashis or Graves, but I can't tolerate any thyroid meds or glandulars. What do I do? So yeah, great question. And your question really ties in a lot to the discussion we had with Bubba's question. So many people like you who are maybe not optimal, but your T4 hasn't flatlined, you still have thyroid hormone there. And optimal is more a matter of, it's more relevant to say if someone should adjust their medicine. It's not really a good gauge to say, should someone start medicine? So yeah, not being optimal really doesn't mean someone should take medication. It can mean something is not right, but it doesn't really mean someone should start. And many people who are still making hormone pretty well, if they add some in, they'll have side effects from like any type or any amount. So you're not unusual in that. And what's happening though is that even so, no Hashis or Graves, what that means is you don't have measurable thyroid antibodies. That doesn't mean you don't have thyroid autoimmunity. This is odd, but you can have thyroid antibodies and not develop thyroid disease, but you can also have thyroid disease and never have positive thyroid antibodies. But the biggest driver is really going to be that whole process and what to do about it. So there have been clinical trials showing that those who are even badly hypothyroid, like TSH scores between 14 and 20, that when they follow the thyroid reset diet, 95% of them completely cure or greatly correct their abnormal function. And I'm talking about high quality human studies. I wouldn't say such bold claims without strong evidence. But there's strong evidence that nearly everyone can radically improve by following the guidelines in the thyroid reset diet. And I dropped a link, I think not too long ago, with some free resources. Yep, the thyroidresetdiet.com/resources. I'll put this back up again on Instagram so it's more visible. But you can even go there and get some ideas off the bat and pursue that further. Okay. Lots of good questions, lots of good things here. So how many, Aisha asking, how many MRDs can you do in a row, getting ready to start when I receive everything? In a row, so I'm guessing you know that I always encourage to break them up by 2 weeks. If you break them up by 2 weeks, as many as 4 in a year can work out just fine. I don't encourage more than 4 in a year, and I do encourage at least 2 weeks in between. But with that, totally fine. And we got a big group kicking off actually today. I'll share this link too. So the metabolism reset challenge. Yeah, here we go. We're kicking one off today. Boy, a lot of folks have made ads trying to capture that. So yeah, this is kicking off today. This is our last one of the year, but this is a free 7-day challenge. And this is, I'm boy, as proud of this as I'm proud of anything. We've had tens and tens of thousands of people who have had radical lasting fat loss and huge health benefits from that. I think one of the biggest things you can do to get healthier is to be at a good amount of body weight. And the extra fat in the liver and the pancreas, they cause more harm than, they drive autoimmunity, they drive inflammation, they harm the brain, they cause damage to the cardiovascular system. I mean, all the things that go wrong with our health, that's the biggest driver of that. And this is like the most effective way I've seen to reverse that. So totally a free challenge. Check it out, join the group, and have fun with that. So yeah, last one of the year. Cindy's starting it today. Good for you, Cindy. I'm looking at a lot of good questions, you guys, and I've got some good ones that were sent in too. And I'm just debating about how to play this year because I can't get to everything, and it makes me nuts that I can't. Let me get one more that was sent in before as well. So this was a great one. This is from Christine. What do you know about the Epstein-Barr virus? I was tested for this and it came back with very high levels of antibodies. What can be done to put it back into remission? Christine, yeah. If you happen to be here, that would be really cool. If you want to talk about your exact Epstein-Barr scores, we can discuss that. So Epstein-Barr is a real thing. It can be associated with thyroid disease, and it can be the cause of a lot of symptoms. and there are some safe ways to help with it. Having said all of that, the vast majority of people who are told they have Epstein-Barr, well, they kind of have it, but not really. Here's what I mean. So when someone is first infected with Epstein-Barr, they're in the stage called the primary infection stage. And a lot of things get really high. Their VCA IgG antibodies elevate. Their VCA IgM antibodies elevate. Now, in the coming months, there's changes that take place in another marker called their eBNA. And for the rest of their lives, their IgG and eBNA antibodies will likely remain positive. So even after someone is better, they will be positive forever. And how common is this? Well, we think that somewhere around 98% of adults have had exposure to Epstein-Barr at some point in their lifetime, often early along in life. Frankie, mononucleosis equals Epstein-Barr virus. Yes, you're totally right, Frankie. So monocytes are one of the types of white blood cells. And with Epstein-Barr infection, there's often a really high number of monocytes. So back quite some time ago, we didn't know about the specific virus. We just knew there was a lot of monocytes. So we called it mono or monocytosis or mononucleosis. But now we call that same thing Epstein-Barr virus. But the upshot is that there's almost everyone who does a blood test for Epstein-Barr will come back in this stage called convalescent serology. They will have some positive antibodies for Epstein-Barr. It's totally normal. There are rare cases to where Epstein-Barr happens for the first time as an adult and it's severe. That happens. And there's also cases where Epstein-Barr can reactivate for adults, and that happens, but they're rare. On the other hand, though, that thing about convalescent serology, that's no joke, 95, 98% of adults. So when someone says they have Epstein-Barr antibodies, they're often told that they have Epstein-Barr, but they almost never do. It's often overdone. And that's why I was hoping if you were here and hearing this, if you want to share the details about your panel, I can give you more information about that. Yeah, happy to give more feedback about it. Okay, lots of really good questions, you guys. I'll grab a couple more of these. Here's one from Vivian. And Vivian's saying, hello, Dr. C. What's an alternative to cod liver oil to increase omegas, fatty acids, and raise DHEA that's lower in iodine? So Vivian, to be really precise, you said DHEA, and that's really close, but you're talking about DHA. So there's DHEA, which is dehydroepiandrosterone, that's an adrenal hormone, and there's DHA, which is docosahexaenoic acid, and that's one of the omega-3 fats. And I was just talking to someone the other day that was, yeah, they sound almost the same. They're so close. And there's so much benefit to omega-3 fats, totally. And I agree about the concerns about cod liver oil. So easy thing. We assay the amount of iodine in omega pure. So fish oil may or may not have iodine, but if it's assayed and it's found to be low, it can be a safe source of omega-3 fats. If it's not assayed, it may be a high source of iodine. You know, Vivian, further along, you're asking a really good question. There's a doctor, he's been public about this, but he was an author, and he was actually a mentor of mine many years ago. He was a good man. And this is dramatic, but he died from cod liver oil. You know, there's no two ways around it. He was taking normal doses of cod liver oil, and it caused a thing called hypervitaminosis A, and it caused congestive heart failure. That's what the whole report showed on his autopsy. And in his last weeks of life, he publicly wrote about what was happening and how much he regretted, you know, using cod liver oil. But yeah, it can have very high amounts of impurities in it. And some things that you wouldn't even think of as impurities, like the vitamin A, can have far more than is appropriate. So I don't encourage the use of cod liver oil because, yeah, someone I know and really cared for died from it. These things do happen. All right, bit of a bummer, but it's true. Wow, you guys, so many good questions. Subacute thyroiditis. Liam, thank you for that. Someone else asked about subacute thyroiditis on Instagram as well. So Liam, just not sure if I have that, or Hashi's. Had a TSH of 96 a year ago. Now it's normal. Been off meds for 4 months. So in general, Liam, we wouldn't expect a TSH quite that high with subacute, at least not for very long, maybe for a brief window of time that can happen. But subacute is generally limited to about 6 to 8 weeks. Someone else, trying to find this question, asked about this on Instagram about subacute also. Yeah, she was saying she got diagnosed with Hashimoto's after getting the shot and with a TSH. Oh, this must be the same person because it's the same number. Yep. 96. Okay. With a TSH of 96, that was a year ago. Been off meds past 4 months, feeling good. Yeah, not as likely. I wouldn't say impossible, but not as commonly. If that 96 was there for a very brief window of time, like for maybe a month or so, then very likely. But on the other hand, it's quite possible to have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's and have a very elevated TSH and have that normalize. Even if it wasn't subacute, that's entirely possible. So yeah, definitely that can happen. Logged off Instagram. Yeah, no worries, no worries. I thought it was a related question, but happy to cover that. All right, let's get at least one more. And I'll try to get follow-up comments as much as possible. Yeah, cod liver oil causes heart failure. So sad. Yeah, very sad. He was an author who inspired a lot of the ancestral health movement, and he shared his story and talked about that. TPO went down since being off meds. Yep, that can happen. I saw this one from Jody. This is more detailed. Let me see if I can. This is a longer question. Let me see if I can make sense of this. Adjusting thyroid meds, navigate the reset diet. Best numbers came out at 50 micrograms of levothyroxine. Endocrinologist from the switch to Armor. TSH rose. Still I'm just a little disappointed. Describe it with thyroid. So Jody, so yeah, if I got this right, you were doing the diet, you were doing better, you were on less meds, you changed to Armor, and your TSH went really high. So that's actually really common. And not because there's anything bad about Armor, but levothyroxine to natural thyroid, there's charts to talk about comparative potencies. So if one wanted to give the same dose of 50 micrograms of levothyroxine, that's about a half grain of desiccated thyroid, Armor brand, NP thyroid brand. If you want to mention how your dose was changed, you can mention that. But if you wanted to give the same amount overall, but a different category, you would go from 50 to 1/2 grain. In Armor, that's also called 30 milligrams. Now, that's, again, the most logical change. However, it's really common when someone makes a change within from one category to another that they need a completely different dosage. So that's pretty normal. It's not a matter of you doing anything wrong. That's a matter of one medicine working totally different than another. If you were more committed to being on Armor, you would need to simply stay on that and undergo some adjustments with it. But it's common that when you change from the category of T4 only to natural thyroid, you might need a whole lot more, and you might need a whole lot less. Those are both entirely possible. Yeah, to 30 milligrams of Armor. Yep, that would be the most logical change, but that's super common. Stick with the diet. If you're not already, cover the right micronutrients. Think about the hypothyroid bundle or the Hashimoto's bundle. I'll get the link up for those. Well, I'll just get the link up here for, the easiest thing is actually the quiz, the thyroid supplement quiz. So if you go on thyroid specific formulations, one of the options you get right away is to take a quiz to see what would be most appropriate for you. That's on the first page. So yeah, if you're not already, Jody, consider what micronutrients might be helpful for you, and they can help with that. Is Armor a better named? I'm not sure what you meant by that one. Is Armor inherently better than the levothyroxine? Maybe that's what you meant, but yeah. Let me see. I think, what supplement for fat liver, please? on Instagram. Supplements, not so much. That's really what the Metabolism Reset Challenge is about. So right before you asked the question, I dropped a link up. I'll put that up again for the Metabolism Reset Challenge. That's really made for fatty liver, which often is the main thing behind resistant body weight. But super, super helpful. Tons of stories of folks that reverse their fatty liver very quickly. Brand. Okay. Yeah, not even a brand issue, just the whole category of natural thyroid versus T4. It's a whole different thing. Hey, Kathy, you're welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you here today. And Aisha, you're welcome also. And yeah, I'll wrap this one up here now momentarily, but good to see everyone. And again, we got a free challenge kicking off today. So come on over to the Metabolism Reset Challenge there. And this is the last one of the season. Good time right before the holidays for it. But take good care, and I'll see you guys next week. There's always times on Monday where we post a link about office hours coming up. And if you've got key points to cover, put them in there. I try to give those a lot of priority. In the meantime, though, take great care. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.